Today I will be talking about two regions and comparing them. One is Asia and the other one is Latin America. The type of government that Asia has is few weak democracies like the Philippines and the Thailand. It does have one strong democracy, which is India, and it has three out of the four communist countries, which is China, Vietnam, and Laos. While in Latin America, most of the governments are weak democracies and it has a few dictatorships like Cuba. Both of these countries had an economic boom and a government change. In Asian countries, more markets were open, which led to the dependence of exportation. And in Latin America, waves of democracy went through many countries and had an economic increase in 2008. The Asian culture believed in Confucianism, where they cared more about the group than the individual, and in Latin America, with so much social inequality, they were working for their basic human needs. Both countries had an economic boom, and China, you didn't see much people getting ripped off because of their values. But some part of Latin America, there was so much social injustice because majority of the business were owned by a small amount of people.
Hello. The topic is Sub-Saharan Desert, Africa, SSA. A long time ago, different European countries set up colonies in Africa. They did so in order to help the government control the people. They changed the culture of the people to make them easy to control. In England, the government set up new buildings and factories and plants in Africa for their economy because the government can make money of the economy. When the United Nations tries to help other countries, they must consider the people of that country are involved in and decide what happens and how they help. Today, many countries depend on each other. So if one country collapses, it affects the other country. The world needs each other to have improvement. Sometimes different charities steal or are corrupt or take food and it does not end up with the poor people. If the world agrees to improve, then changes can happen. But most of the time, everyone will not agree, so changes never happen. The SSA uses identity perspective and the level is domestic. For example, corrupt governments impede economics and human development.
The identity perspective focuses on the shared and conflicting values over global growth. In the Middle East and North Africa, economic inequality continues to be a critical issue since inequality can delay the overall development in a region and eventually it can lead to political strife and conflict happening in a domestic level. This is what happened specifically with the Arab Spring events that started in 2010. Economic policies in the Middle East and North Africa are meant to protect only state-owned enterprises, and this leads to a repression of all the other sectors that aren't really related to oil. In the end, manufactured goods don't end up being part of the export markets of these countries. As a result, men and especially women struggle entering the workforces and making a decent living due to no offers of stimulating investments or jobs. In addition, due to the regional religious emphasis on domestic roles for women, women continue having trouble entering the workforces, which leads to a whole new type of economic inequality based on women's gender.
The western part of the world has developed at a faster rate when compared to eastern countries. This is not by happenstance. Because of colonialism, which is a conquest and exploitation by the European states of poor people and lands in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. An example of this was when Spain joined Portugal to challenge foreign lands. These two forces split the world into two parts rather than fight one another over the boundaries. The Treaty of Tordesillas, which took place in 1494, drove a straight line south of the tip of Greenland across the Atlantic Ocean, portioning off the far eastern section of South America. Portugal ended up taking the land east of the line, which is Brazil, Africa, and Macau. Spain took everything that was west of this line, which were the Americas and Philippines. This mindset was known as imperialism. In definition, it is the forceful extension of a nation's authority to other people by military, economic, and political domination. According to critical theory perspective, the taking over the West was known as exploitation. By definition, it is the extraction of profits from resources and labor of others in an unjust way. Critical theorists believe that colonialism wasn't a historical phenomenon. They believe that it was sown deep into societies These countries, and because of this, created patterns of dependency from the advanced world.
Hello, and welcome to Step On Tonight. I'm your host, Stepan Yankovic. Today we do serious news. Multinational corporations, as defined by the Encyclopedia Britannica, is any corporation that is registered and operates in more than one country at a time. An Indian judge and author, Kolchana Basappa, termed the acquisition of farmers' lands by MNCs as worse than rape. I will outline reasons why, according to the critical theory perspective, MNCs play a major role in the detriment of society. According to a study conducted by a researcher at the Fordham School of Law, MNCs, in order to meet competitive demand, employ young children in underdeveloped nations, paying them less than the law would allow them to in an industrialized nation. End quote. For the wealthy elites within the nation in which the exploitation takes place, this is a no-brainer. They receive much-needed tax revenue while exploiting the poor, thus promoting inequality. On the other hand, the corporation receives labor at a substantial fraction of the cost. But the true cost that quite simply cannot be measured in dollars and cents is the exploitation of children. The marginalization that MNCs commit not only affects children but also society in general. In 1995, the government of the Philippines introduced the Mining Act, and I quote from an article in the New Straits Times, a Malaysian newspaper, which allowed 100% foreign ownership of mining firms, end quote, thus increasing global inequality and exploiting the local population while leaving the local population with no rights to the minerals. As shown by my examples, MNCs exploit laborers, marginalize society, and promote global inequality.